This show can be found on Podcast DC, the new local app with hundreds of options in local news, health, and of course, the DMV region. Download the Podcast DC app to hear the Empire shows as well as other great content.
Empire.
What's up, everybody? It's Mike Jones. Thanks for coming back for another episode of the Football Jones podcast. We're going to have a quick little episode here to kick off the week, and then a more extensive episode later on the week. But today, here are three things I'm looking at as another NFL week of offseason rolls on upon us. This is the beginning of phase 3 of the offseason program, and now on-field workouts will be permitted. But as you remember from our talks with George Atala from the NFL Players Association a couple weeks ago, we know that there's a push now more than ever for this to be a voluntary period for players to really exercise that right. It's already in their contracts that this is voluntary, but in the past there's been pressure for them to attend these sessions. We're going to see more guys stay away, and we're also going to see guys who opt to attend these workouts. This week, you could hear reports of great attendance, who's showing up. You could hear reports of low attendance, who's not showing up. But don't get hung up on that, because none of this really matters right now, because this, again, is voluntary. And a number of teams have this understanding and agreement with their players. More than half of the team's head coaches have negotiated with their player leadership to scale things back. Some of them are just going to be doing walkthroughs. Some of them are condensing this from a 9-week program to a 2-week program. And they have great attendance for these 2 weeks, and then they'll let their guys get back to their off-season training and time with their families. We've seen that some teams also are just going to focus more on developing young talent and giving them a firm foundation and letting their veterans slide. So this is a fluid point right now. The NFL, the Players Association, they don't even have a concrete number of the teams that have scaled things back or what those setups look like, because they're letting the coaches and the players haggle with this thing and figure out what works best for them. That's what matters right now. What works best for the players, what works best for the coaches. As they saw last year because of COVID, they can be creative and still be prepared adequately for when they hit the field in late July for the start of training camp. That's what matters most. Number 2 is Julio Jones. The Atlanta Falcons wide receiver continues to have trade rumors swirl around him because he's owed $15.3 million in guaranteed money on his cap, and he's got on his salary, and he's got a really hefty salary cap hit of about $23 million left on his contract. The Falcons don't have a lot of cap space, and so that's why people think that they are going to trade him. We will see what happens, what the asking price, and who's willing to jump into this. Betting odds, according to PointsBet, has the San Francisco 49ers as the favorite, followed by the Colts and the Chargers and the Ravens fourth. The Patriots and the Packers are also pegged as prime locations. 49ers make a lot of sense because Kyle Shanahan coached Julio Jones as the offensive coordinator in Atlanta when they went to the Super Bowl in 2016. That was before Kyle took that job as the head coach in San Francisco. Jones would certainly give the 49ers a veteran presence and a big physical wide receiver to go with their young, still developing pass catchers. So that makes sense if they can figure out compensation and everything like that. But we already know they gave up a lot to move up in the draft to get Trey Lance. So as far as first-round draft picks and compensation tools, that'll be interesting to see what they could come up with. I don't understand the Chargers going after Jones. Yes, they got a young quarterback. Yes, talent helps, but they're not one piece away from contending. They'd be better off to be patient and continue to build this thing. The Colts, yes, he would help the receiving core there and Carson Wentz. Same thing with the Ravens, the Packers, and the Patriots as they're trying to bolster their chances of contending and making Super Bowl runs. But again, what exactly would the Falcons want? And do we know exactly how much Julio Jones has left in the tank? I talked to a coach very familiar with him from his time in Atlanta who said he's got plenty left, and if it was him, he would keep him. if he was the Falcons. He would find a way to make it work by being creative with other players' salary caps, figures, to make this thing work. One thing to keep in mind, that the Falcons chose to pass on drafting a quarterback. They've expressed their commitment to Matt Ryan. So, if you're in win now mode, why would you rob him of one of his best targets? Just something to keep in mind. And so we will see how this thing plays out here.
I'm Amanda Klutz, Broadway actress, dancer, and celebrity trainer, and I partnered with Equinox to create a custom AK rope class. It's a rhythmic group fitness experience, and music is an integral component. Jump and sculpt using the rope in ways you've never imagined. It's time to get back to moving our bodies. AK Rope, my signature class, now available at Equinox, is a safe, fun, and positive way to do just that.
It's NBA playoff time, so get on over to monkeyknifefight.com, daily fantasy sports site that's partnered with the Football Jones podcast. Go over there and play at least $10 each for the next 4 days and get a free $20 NBA ticket. Just use my show code JONES. Remember, they are still running their instant 100% deposit match up to $100 for new depositors, so take advantage of this limited time offer today. Get on over to monkeyknifefight.com, play mkf.com/Jones. That's play mkf.com/Jones. The third thing I'm looking is at Aaron Rodgers and the Green Bay Packers. All eyes remain on Green Bay and their disgruntled quarterback, but things remain quiet from Rodgers' camp. We still haven't actually heard from him or from his agent on what they're thinking right now. We know there are reports that he wants out, that he doesn't want to play for them anymore. But is that exactly the case? Or is this thing irreparable? A number of his former teammates believe that he'll still return to the Packers, that they'll find a way to get things back on track, and that Rodgers, for right now, simply wants to ensure that they're doing everything possible to position him and this team for success. It's believed that a pay increase, financial security beyond this year could help appease Rodgers. Yes, adding another weapon like Julio Jones certainly could help as well. Matt LaFleur was the quarterbacks coach there in Atlanta in 2016, working under Kyle Shanahan, so he's got great familiarity with Julio Jones. But the Falcons, again, they're going to want a lot. Do the Packers have what it takes to pry him away? And also, the Packers are normally a frugal team. Do they want to take on that kind of a cap hit? Depends on how desperate they are to work things out. Time will tell here. Time is still on Green Bay's side. They've added extra quarterbacks to help them get through OTAs, which already are going to be pared down and, again, are voluntary. We'll see what happens if Rodgers decides not to come to the mandatory part. But even if he doesn't come to that mandatory 3-day session, if they still even keep that, because a lot of this is fluid. A lot of teams are canceling mandatory portions at the last minute. But either way, Brian Gutekunst, the general manager, needs to make every effort to meet with Rodgers face to face, reiterate his franchise's commitment to the quarterback. If it is about money, they need to get the calculators out, crunch those numbers, and find a way to transfer what is non-guaranteed money, make that guaranteed money for the next 2-3 years, and make Rodgers happy. As far as practice goes, if he's not there right now, it doesn't hurt anything because he knows this offense quite well, and there's plenty of time for him to get a copy of the playbook and study over it and be ready for training camp. His presence in training camp is all that matters right here. Remember, from a couple weeks ago when we talked to Tom Silverstein, they have done everything they can to position themselves for a Super Bowl run around Rodgers for this season, and so they want him back in the worst way, as Matt LaFleur said. So we'll keep an eye on all of this week, and then later this week I'm going to be joined by a former NFL star who is turning over a new leaf, trying his hand at another form of competition. Okay, I'll give you a little bit of a hint, a little better hint. Chad Johnson, Ocho Cinco. This is going to be interesting. He's stepping into the ring, and he's going to talk about it later this week. Thanks so much for listening. Again, you can read me at usatoday.com. Follow me on Twitter and Instagram @ByMikeJones. And I will talk to you guys again later this week.